Jennifer is the founder and the director of NewChic Capital, the venture capital and private equity arm of her own family office. She's also founder of Glam-it, a beauty, fashion, lifestyle technology brand. She's also chair of Society of Family Offices, Women with a Purpose, and chief love officer of playgroundapp.com. Hi, Jennifer. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it and appreciate the setup. Are you based out of Asia?
I'm based in Hong Kong.
Oh, okay. I was because I was just on a call earlier with people in the U.S. time zone, and then they were like, "Are you based in the U.S.?" I was like, "I'm based in Hong Kong," and I'm like, "Ask everyone. Like everyone's time zone is flipped these days."
Right.
You know, Zoom is the new in person, right? So but you assume that people are in the same time zone as you. I was like, oh, I think you're based in Hong Kong, or you may have gone to Korea. So I wasn't sure. But
yes, I'm still in Hong Kong.
Okay.
I look at I mean, in the email, bottom of your email, you have a signature, right? You mention about the business and the activity you are engaged now. Looks like you wear so many hats, right? What are please tell me about it. NewChic Capital and Glam-it, Playground App, Auto Hotel, and what else?
There's more.
Prestige, I don't know how to pronounce it. It's not a Prestige, right? Prestige.
Prestige is my manager.
Okay.
Yeah, Esther Ma is my manager. I think you kind of met her a little bit earlier, but so yeah, I do wear a lot of hats because so first and foremost, I'm an investor for my family office. I set that up after an exit. I'm a hybrid, so I guess you could call me an entrepreneur, exited entrepreneur, as well as an investor. And so I like to look at different things, and then sometimes when I have different portfolio companies and projects, I consider them almost like my babies, right? So sometimes I'll be like an advisor for this, I'll help with this. So for example, so for NewChic Capital, that's just the name of my family office, and then we have an investment committee, and we look at different interesting deals, as well as we try to empower underestimated startups and founders, as well as try to bring impactful ideas and projects to fruition. So I would call us a combination of impact builders and impact investors. And then with Glam-it, it's actually my passion project. I should show you some of my products, but they're in the other room. But it's a beauty brand I launched several years back, got it into Harvey Nichols, Sephora, a lot of different places. So that one, actually, the products are made in Korea. So
interesting.
Yeah, until we resume production.
What kind of beauty care product? Is it like a cosmetic and the color and those kind of things?
Yeah, it's color, but it's like it's cosmetics with beneficial ingredients.
Okay.
And then it has a little bit of a tint, so it's very natural. So right now I'm actually wearing like some of our makeup, but it's very natural, so it looks like I'm not wearing makeup, right? So it's just a little bit of, it's sheer, it's practically clear. So it's
I heard that's a strength of Korean beauty care product, right?
Of course.
It looks very natural, right?
Yeah, I really love Korean beauty, and that's one of the reasons why we were making our cosmetics there. And then the reason why right now we're not so active on that one is because right now we're not able to, I want to go visit the laboratories in Korea and then produce my next batch, and I'm not able to right now due to obviously the pandemic, right? I like to be there in person looking at everything. So have that, and then Playground is a company I was helping to advise for. I'm also an investor in it. And I brought in a lot of their community, so they gave me a cute like chief love officer, which was basically
I saw that. That's a very creative and lovely name, chief love officer.
Yeah, because I think the building blocks of all community is empathy, right? And the building block of empathy is love.
Right.
Like, hey, that kind of makes sense. I'm not the chief revenue officer. I just want to bring it together. And then Auto Hotel is my husband's project. I just, I only help out if he says, I mean, he and his team have everything under control. So I just, I just help support where I can. If they're like, hey, social media website, what's your input? So but that's his project. And and then there are actually some soon to be announced projects. And then finally Prestige, as well as, you met my chief of staff, Peggy, as well as earlier Lily. Prestige Esther is my Greater China manager. And then Lily is my US manager for my acting, modeling, and since I'm a concert pianist, my piano and music projects. So that way I can have my passion projects going. And that was David, you're so smart. You're
Why?
똑똑해요. 너무너무 똑똑해요. You're very, very smart.
Why do you say that?
Because you just basically got me to introduce myself using my signature. That was
right. Yes. Yeah, that's a very natural way, because when I receive it, you put so many names on it, right? So interesting. Do you know that it's a 2017, 2018, and recently 2020, 3 Korean startup, cosmetic startup. One startup, like a only 20 years old young lady. She started like a drop shipping business and then turn it into like cosmetic brand by herself. So 3 company become the unicorn. Just a few in less than 10 years, they started from the scratch. I mean, young, like not with a fantastic cosmetic background, marketing background, just normal young girl. She studied cosmetic. Like the first company they sold to Unilever for $3 billion US. And second company sold it to the Stylanda, to the, what is that? L'Oreal. And third company, I forgot. They sold it to another global brand. So it's bigger than the tech or fintech or ride-hailing. They quickly grow to.
Beauty tech is huge. Beauty tech is very huge. One of my portfolio companies right now, they're doing a friends close, and they partnered with one of the ones that I just told you about, Unilever, for like a global sort of like white labeling sort of a campaign. I mean, they're slowly rolling other parts of it out. And what I thought like was very, very interesting is what you said, like people underestimate. And I think right now during the pandemic, you see the power of beauty. You saw me earlier. I was like, oh, I have to like quickly change into the right outfit. I didn't realize there's a visual component to this podcast. I thought it was just a podcast, but you're like, oh no, it's a broadcast. I was like, oh, that's great. Let me get myself changed. One of the reasons why I think beauty has really like skyrocketed is that there's many things that you can't control in life, right? You can't control like whether there's a pandemic, you can't control the stock market, you can't control what, your country or what a government is doing. You can't control that. But what you can control is your skincare regimen. Are you using the right tools? Are you using the right things? That is, I think that's one of the reasons why, not just for women, but for men too. I'm sure as a Korean man, even Korean men, they have very good skin because they have several steps in their skincare routine. It's about self-care. So I love how you just said that just now. There's like definitely so many beauty unicorns and millennials like me, and I think you're millennial too, but millennials and zennials who are able to build these unicorns because it's not even a trend. It's just something's always true. Even like, in wartime, people still had the lipstick index, meaning people still buy their basic beauty to make themselves feel better, right? So love how you said that just now. Yeah,
because when people talk about the explosive growth of the startup and new technology, new business model, they're talking about the basically, disruptive business model and technology of all the technology startup or the ventures, right? But only one industry I have observed that from the old traditional industry, which is skincare and beauty care, their growth is even bigger, faster than this technology startup. As I mentioned, they sold the company. Young people started very small, store, shop, and then they grow it $3 billion business in terms of equity valuation. So which is amazing, right? Right. So you call the NewChic Capital a family office, right? Family office investment arm. So I understand a lot of people loosely call their business activity, many different business activity, the family office. Somebody is a provider investment management services to the family-owned group, or somebody manage the investment portfolio and engaged in the investment activity. So can you tell us what is the major activity of NewChic Capital?
So the major activity of NewChic Capital is investing my money.
Okay, yeah, clear and simple.
And then friends who are my investment committee, they're investing their own money.
So
we're not so basically we're not a fund. Definition of a family office, I think you know what it is. There are a lot of people who are like service providers who call
yes,
office, and they're not actually. So I'm actually the family, and I'm the principal, and I set up my own family office.
I got you. So you don't put the money into your fund vehicle first, and then just like other funding. Oh, okay, so it's a
we make direct investments as well as allocations into other VC funds too as well. So like for example, we're an LP in SoGal Ventures, right? As fund, we're an LP in another one as well. We're an LP in different funds. So
I see.
we're not we don't. NewChic Capital itself, it's just our own private money.
So it's like a fund, like a professional fund management company. It's very well defined from the beginning, their activity, and then the size of fund, and then the mandate, what kind of sector, and then what is the investment strategy. But sounds like your investment activity, like doing just like water, flow like water, right?
It does, because the thing is about a fund, and a lot of people they think, VC, it's like so glamorous and everything. But what you don't understand necessarily is that as a VC, just like as an entrepreneur, you have to report to a lot of like different LP
right.
That's right. And the difference with a family office, like a true family office, is that I don't have any LPs or investors. Right. I'm invest with friends and everything, but I'm not like, I have to report back to my shareholder. I don't have any shareholders.
That's right. So they like the fund management company, their activity is defined and restricted by their mandate. They agree to have with their limited partner, right?
Right. So like the good thing about family offices in some ways, different family offices are different. Some are more conservative, some are like only like on their traditional lines of business. For example, my husband will look at the family's traditional lines of business. I've really always just enjoyed like technology and new things. For me, like it was a no-brainer for me to focus on private equity aspect of things. So I think it's really good when you can like focus on your own mandate, your own sort of your own mission, your own vision, so to speak. So one of the reasons why I said like, hey, no matter what I do, I wanted to set this NewChic Capital up is that it has to be dictated by my stakeholders. And actually my stakeholders are going to be, I don't know if you heard of my background, but they'll be my family, like my little ones growing up. I have to show them how to take over and become responsible entrepreneurs and investors themselves. And that's the reason why I set this up in the first place, so that they know how to continue to contribute to the ecosystem in meaningful ways beyond just merely, existing.
Yeah, got you. So can you tell us a little bit about your investment strategy? Like what kind of sector and geography market and stage of the portfolio company you are usually looking for?
So we actually don't really restrict ourselves that much. I like to look for anything that is, so my mandate is that it has to be universally impactful. The teams have to be diverse, meaning like I don't like an all male. I don't tend to like all male team. Everyone is from one country, because I feel like a lot of times you'll fall into silos and like groupthink. So I like it if there's like the company diverse backgrounds, as well as the other thing that I look for. I'm not restricted by geography either, but our investments have tend to span like Asia, US, a little bit in Europe too. And Australia. I want to learn more about more of the emerging markets, including like Middle East and Africa. We do have like a slight exposure, I'm sure, as like secondary exposure as LPs and other funds. But what I'm trying to say is that I really like, I think there's a lot to be said in fintech, ed tech, fashion and beauty tech. And actually that can be classified as femtech I think femtech is very, very interesting. The other one that we had a recent exit on, it was an IPO on NASDAQ, was in the medical space. It was a cancer vaccine, right? And then the parent company, which we're LPs in, they are doing a lot more sort of longevity and other things like that, including like, Alzheimer's, heart disease, and other things. So I think health tech is going to continue to be like very, very important. We also like, as you know, I'm a concert pianist, so actually have an NFT launching soon of a concert I did last week. Actually, one of the reasons why I was a bit busy to get on your podcast, because I was a performer for the Women Helping Women charity. They raised a lot of money for that Women Helping Women Hong Kong charity, and I was one of the performers. So you might see a small like little clip of it later in the future. But one of the reasons why I try to focus on, I try not to like, I don't think anyone's investment mandate should be like, let's throw spaghetti at a wall and see what sticks. It should be definitely be like, you should be focused on different buckets. So those are some of our buckets, but I think the main thing kind of connecting all the theme, connecting all the strands together, is that we focus on universally impactful tech, meaning there has to be a market, there has to be an impact. If you're telling me like, oh, I have this idea for an app, it manages, your other apps managing these apps, and then it will let you know which app to use during, I'll be like, sorry, what's the use case? Or if you're telling me like, oh, this is a really great invention, it's going to help like, billionaires who are athletes going to the Olympics in a rocket ship, then I'll be like, I'm so sorry, that's like a bit narrow. I mean, that's not inclusive of like
Yes.
a one, like, it needs to, so basically we look for universally impactful tech with like a universal unmet need that is helping humanity to a certain degree. It can't be something that's just sitting there being like, oh yes, I invented this app that will organize my mouse pad collection. Like that's right. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So in terms of stage of the company, are you investing more in the early stage, mid stage, mature stage?
That's a great question as well. So in terms of stage of the company, there's so I feel like I never say never. I was like, I actually have gone in on a few pre-seed, and you don't necessarily do pre-seed or seed as a family office. Most don't even look at that. But because I've been actually really like able to pick things quite early in the past and see really good things. Now, there was a couple I looked at right now from the ESG space, and we got in, including one that was related to climate tech. Right. So on that last month, I thought that was just super interesting company. And that was pre-seed, and then there's another pre-seed one that is like involving a space tech as well as 3D printing. I'm like, oh wow, that's very interesting as well. And then the other one that we got in on seed was you said playground. Yeah, we our friends and us, we put a bunch of money, and then we also invested. Advisors helped them with the raise, and then other a couple of VCs. Sorry, I want to say VCs, strategics, including a VC I'm an LP in. SoCal Ventures also invested, as well as another one that I think will be announced in the media soon. A big strategic. So I like getting involved early whenever possible, but that doesn't mean I go all early, because you have to de-risk things somewhat. Sometimes you have to see if founders are hitting milestones, if certain like KPIs are being met. I've also gotten in on, so lucky, there's been a lot of pre-IPOs and unicorns that we were lucky to get in on before they became pre-IPOs and unicorns. So I would just say we look at different stages. We tend not to look super late because we already have exposure to super late via our private bankers and other means, right? So I like to look like early, and I like to be in the know, and I'm more of an early mover than a lot of my circle would be, or some of my circle.
Yeah. Got it. Yeah.
So the thing is, like, everybody makes mistakes. There's no one who's done a mistake. We're all human, right? But the thing is that, like, your wins need to outweigh your mistakes. And in the case of like SoftBank, I'm sure that will always more or less be the case, right? Yes. So me too. I'm not like telling you about like all the different mistakes I'm making. I'm sure I make a multitude of mistakes all the time. So It was actually another IPO that was very exciting this past year as well. It was I can show you later, but it was I did a TVC for them. It's the Smart Mirror, which is all of X Cara Smart Fitness, right?
Yes.
That one was quite exciting for us as well, and I think one of the reasons why I consider myself very blessed and fortunate is that, I have a lot of friends and, more successful people around me who are sharing their amazing deal flow, as well as these opportunities with me. Like that one, they got me on early as an advisor as well as an investor. And that was like, I was very happy to, see that team and the journey like go so well. Yeah. So a lot of I think a lot of international forces at play. I mean, they started doing super well during the pandemic too, because it's a smart mirror where you don't have to leave your house to go get the workout, right? So
yes, true. So is what do you look for when evaluating early stage company or startup?
You're trying to get my secret sauce. Okay.
This may be a tough question.
Yeah, no, I definitely look at a combination of factors. So, well, that's a great question. So the first thing I look for actually is I look at the founding team. So I look at them and I look at their track record. And that doesn't necessarily mean like, oh, they have to have exits. That means that I want to see what they've done with their lives. If they've been doing good things, and then also like look at the company, like the track record, see whether again, like they're meeting that unmet need, whether they're universally impactful. And then I look at the founding team. I look at their chemistry. Are they good people? Like I have one very simple thing. Life is too short to invest in. I probably shouldn't say that word. And not nice people. Life is too short to invest in people who aren't good people, right? And also, life is too short to have people who aren't good people on your cap table. It goes both ways, right? So that's why it's very important for me, first and foremost, that these people are good people doing good things, that they have the vision. And the other thing, I know it's down to the people, but it's about the grit. And I think grit translates into whether they're able to execute, whether they're just like good at talking or fundraising. There's some people who are very good at doing. There's some people who are very good at talking. Are these people who can do both? Are they going to be good at both fundraising and deploying?
That's the most popular word these days. I heard that somebody gave a very interesting explanation of a grit. Somebody say that grit is the ability to continue to suffer.
Yeah.
Ability to continue to suffer.
Grit is basically resilience. Grit is basically perseverance. I like grit. Grit is my favorite four-letter word, GRIT. That's the best four-letter word. I mean, it's grit. It's like, you got knocked down. Can you pull yourself back up again? Can you keep going? Because in life, as well as in the company's life, you're going to have those ups and downs. You can't if you can't, hike up the mountain and also be careful about falling down into the valleys, then you're not going to make it, right? So that's very important to see not only the past successes, but the past failures of the people that you are going to be investing in. Because the other thing too is that sometimes there are a lot of founders out there who have several exits, right? And then they're good at being founders, and then everyone wants to invest in them. Like one of my friends who I invested in recently co-invested alongside Andreessen Horowitz, as well as Lightspeed. Like we've invested alongside these like amazing VCs because first and foremost, they didn't even. His company didn't even have a deck. He just mentioned that he's raising, and then he was like writing an email, and then everyone was putting money in. That's how amazing he is, because he's like had so many exits. Like he was involved with like his exit included like Zynga, as well as
Zynga. I heard of them. Yeah.
Uber bought one of the companies he was also involved with, and and Andreessen Horowitz is like a house at this point. I mean, also So so his company with I can just get kind of his company is called runway.com. So it's like cloud computing for people to figure out their runway, like their financial, like, hey, this is how much runway I've left. Like, I mean, it's just like a dashboard, so you can kind of like just gauge everything, okay, we're in cruise control mode now, like how are we doing? So it's like a great tool for like CFOs, and so that's runway.
Got you. So hearing from you, it seems like you're looking for the entrepreneur businessman who has a good muscle memory.
Businesswoman.
Woman, okay. Okay, good businesswoman has a good muscle memory based on experience, right?
That's a great point. Yeah, muscle memory. It's like elite athletes. They know how to perform under duress. They know how to perform under stress. They know how to.
Yes.
Yeah, and then they know how to like, okay, we're slightly uncomfortable. Now what do we do? Push the accelerator pedal. We're slightly. What do we do? Get to Mach 3. You know, that's yeah. It's all about pushing the envelope, both as entrepreneurs and investors. Because if you don't push the envelope, things don't transform and get done.
Yeah. And I mean, you talk about the Africa. I mean, in terms of potential investment. In fact, I finished more than 50 interview with African entrepreneur and founders, more than 50. And
wow.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to introduce me to some of them at some point.
Yes, yeah, we'll do. I can, and because I finished more than 50, which means that I spoke to more than 100 entrepreneurs in Africa. So maybe 20 countries there. So at least I have a good understanding about the trend, what is booming in across Africa. Yeah, Africa is a lot of problem issues. We can complain, investors may complain about the infrastructure and everything and the legal system. But we have experienced the same thing in China 30 years ago, right? Everybody, Western international investors, they complain about a lot of problems in Chinese market. But we have observed that it grew explosive way, right? So same thing will happen, and in a long-term time frame, same thing will happen to Africa. I believe that. Yeah,
I think so too. I think like that's what's so exciting about Africa. It's like that. It's so for most people in the world, it's so uncharted. It's not like where you'd necessarily be thinking of like, oh, you know, that's going to be the next place to go. But really it is, because like, you know, they used to, I remember like they used to lump China and India. They used to call it Chindia, right?
Chindia, yeah.
Right? And I'm like, okay, like you can't just lump everything. I mean, the other thing that people also often don't realize about Africa is that it's not a monolith. There's so many countries there. It's a continent. It's like there's so right. And then people are like, oh, I'm gonna go to what's the capital of Africa? And you're like, there are so many capitals in Africa. You have like so
they're using different languages. It's a very, very different country. They have different legal systems. So people oversimplify, right? So same thing about the Asia. I mean, when I travel, everybody spoke to me in Chinese. Ni hao. So I said, I'm not a Chinese. Then I need to explain there is more than 50 countries in Asia, right?
So many, yeah. I mean, I totally get it. It's kind of like, you know, they're like, oh, it's just different dialects in Asia. And I'm like, no, it was like different dialects in China, and they can be so different. It's like, it sounds like a different language. And then they're like, oh, how about in Korea? Are people speaking like North Korean and South Korean? I was like, no, Korea, like, you know, that they have their, it's like it's not like, you know, they don't have divergent dialects. They have, like, you know, people can understand it, and they're like, oh, Korean people understand Chinese people. I'm like, there might be some linguistic similarities, but no, usually no. It might be, you know, we might be like, they'll be like, oh, so what's the word for water? I'm like, mul, and you know, it's water is so stray in Chinese, and then like, oh, so like I love how you just said, like, a lot of times people tend to oversimplify not just trends, but people. You can't just like look at a broad swath of people and be like, okay, let me take one brush stroke and then, okay, this is how it is. It's just, that's not how, definitely not.
Oversimplification. Because that's an easy way to communicate, to explain, but it is non-starter from the in case you want to do the launch the business, grow the business other continent, right? If you don't understand, it doesn't work, right?
That's definitely the case. I don't think anyone can. I mean, when you're saying, like, you know, oversimplifying people's cultures, people's countries, people's heritages, and then I think the same can be said with like technology and businesses as well. People are like, oh, you know, everyone from Silicon Valley, they all wear like hoodies and they do this and they do that, and sometimes you're like, no, that's the caricature, that's the caricature. But you know, one person is not representative of like an entire an entire, country, entire like company culture, so I think that's why it's actually really, you just hit upon my second point of what I look for actually in companies, is that they have the proper culture going on, meaning it's a culture built on collaboration, trust, not like fear, and not like people just, it's very important to preserve that company
I
culture.
agree.
You actually have to see, it's also another cultural thing. Like, I like to see how, back when when travel was more free and everything, I mean, you can engage people on Zoom, but what I also like to do is take, founders or investors out to eat and see how they treat people.
Yes. Eating together is most important and most best way to, interact, enjoy together. Yeah.
Yes, you can not only enjoy together, but you can read a lot of like nonverbal cues together.
Yes, agree. Yeah, actually, my podcast brand is CEO Roundtable Bridging Asia. So I intend to bridge the Asia and then rest of the world. That's my theme. Yeah. And another is another podcast is just Asian investor. Yeah. Okay, so what can we expect from you this year or the next year? And what is a long-term vision or your destination of NewChic Capital or the other entrepreneur activity what you are doing now?
Oh, wow. I feel like we've now come full circle. We went from my signature and the intros to like kind of like my long-term vision, and now I'm like,
Nice.
pressure is
on. I'm trying to travel inside your brain and your heart.
You're traveling around the world of NewChic Capital and our. I really appreciate that, David. Very artful. I now know how you do your broadcast, and I really enjoy being in the hot seat. So I think so. Actually, one thing I want to talk about, because I've mentioned some of my portfolio companies and some of the other things that we've been involved with, right? And kind of scratch the tip of the iceberg. So one thing I think that's really important, and something I want to continue doing going forward, no matter what I do, is that I tend to be a workaholic. I think a lot of us are. And then I think one thing that we have to be very careful of, all of us, is to not have burnout. So so in addition to NewChic Capital, I just want to emphasize that I do yoga, like I picked it up, and now I can do like various things that are very like flexible, like splits and different things, and in the future I'll be working on more and more. You'll see on my social media.
Okay.
But one of the things that I was like very proud of, not just because of like the yoga and the piano and like getting myself back into it, is just realizing that like I think a lot of what we're forgetting about in this age of automation and in the age of like everyone just being very busy, is we're like forgetting how to be human. So one of the things that I'm looking forward to with NewChic Capital, as well as what I'm going to be doing more and more of, is not just getting back into more of the arts and the humanities, like maybe doing like film roles and some brand ambassadorships, but also doing more in terms of giving back. So more focusing even more on the impact, focusing more on like charitable causes and initiatives. So that's something that we'll continue to do. There's different foundations that we're getting involved with, and different. I think the other thing that we're also going to be doing, I guess, long-term vision. Now that you know that we're not like a straight up fund, long to the family office is to like make sure that like my kids are quite young right now. They're my daughter just turned 7. She's the youngest intern I have right now. Intern family. I call it intern. I do give her a lot of. I mean, she like me. She's a budding. She plays piano, but she's also a budding equestrian. So she's riding ponies and horses. So I think one of the long-term things I want to do is make sure that my children, who are going to be running like our investments and things in the future, and also my friends, that we're all taking good care of ourselves. I really believe in lifelong learning. One of the things I'm still doing right now is Latin. So I'm actually doing Latin translations and text. And I'm going to leave you with this, actually. I'm going to recite the first, I've never done this before live, the first 18 lines of the Canterbury Tales, which I've memorized. Would you like to hear it? It's an
Yes, yes, please.
Okay, so this will kind of be a metaphor also for what I'm kind of giving you an allegory for. So, okay, so this is the first 18 lines and it's in Germanic English. So it's like more or less like kind of Anglo-Saxon sounding. You might hear a part of it, okay? And it's from the Canterbury Tales. Something a lot of British school children as well as other people with classical education had to read. It's about the pilgrimage of different people like seeking on their respective journeys, okay? Let me see if I remember. Okay, water first. When a ravel with a shore sotte, the rock of March had passed the rotte, and bather every vein in switch the core, of which ved to engender is the floor. One Zephyrus eke with a sweet of breath, and spirit hatten rehotten het the ton the croppus, and the young is on the hatten the ram his half course your own, and small palace mac and melody sleeping not in it put up in air, so pricket them not core in her courages, and long and folk going in pilgrimages, and Palmerus for the second strongest to Verna always caught in Thunderlandis. And specially from every sheriff end of Engeland the Canterbury the wend, the holy blissful Martha for the sake that him at helpen when that they were sick.
Very good. Yeah, sounds to me a little similar to the German. Yeah, interesting.
It is because that was when the Britannia, Germania, it was all. You look at the history, right? So it's kind of like the archaic form of the modern German and British, German and English languages right before they started diverging more, right? So interesting to.
Yes.
So I also want to touch upon really quickly, like, I think that like one of the ways that all of us can continue to create value for each other is into the ecosystem. So long-term vision, I hope to continue also, partnering with you doing your broadcast. I think it's like worthy endeavor. I think you're giving a voice to a lot of people, and then you're also about lifelong learning. We learn by doing, right? We learn
that's very true.
Interacting with others. I mean, I'm learning so much about you. You wouldn't let me interview you. I'm hoping I can flip it around and interview you next time. You back in the city. I think one of the things that we need to continue to do, also all of us, is to continue to evolve. The only thing that we're certain of in this life is that
evolve and grow. Evolve and grow.
Yeah. So you just put it there. I think we'll just continue to evolve and grow, and then make sure that that we don't let change outpace us. That we change with that change. That we really know that the only thing for certain in this life is that change itself is inevitable.
Yeah,
right?
Agree. Totally agree.
Thank you so much.
And thank you very much. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you so much, David. I haven't shared all of my story. I hope there'll be a part 2 and part 3 later. But
yes, we can do that. We can do that. We can talk about different topics. Thank you very much for listening to this episode. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, share with a friend, and drop me a review. Goodbye.